Welcome back. Hope everyone had a good May. And, the last couple of these I've done them a lot quicker and a lot shorter, and it's just made them so much more tolerable. So I'll try and keep that up. Let's jump right in. The Devil Wears Prada 2. I went to watch Devil Wears Prada 2, did a video about it if you want to check that out. And the cast are still great. Like, I'm so glad they got all four of those main actors back, and they're all still so good in their roles, and so have their chemistry hasn't skipped a beat and everything like that. But there's way too much plot in this fucking movie. There's way too much going on. They turned Devil Wears Prada into Succession. It's all about like the machinations of the corporate world and which shareholders are going to outbid other shareholders and who's going to acquire this and who's going to merge with that. And I'm not here for that, the stuff. This was directed by Larry Cohen. Great little kind of campy horror satire of consumerism and companies that sell unhealthy foods, and they, profit off of destroying people's bodies, poisoning people with this horrible, terrible food. And in the stuff, it's this white goo. It's like that's just a stand-in for sugar and all this kind of shit that is in the food supply. I thought it was delightful. Like, it's, even if you're not trying to look for a subtext, if you're not trying to look for any kind of allegory, it's just still a great horror film and a lot of fun. But if you are looking for the subtext, you'll find it, Jackass the movie. This was free on YouTube, so I watched it, and I love Jackass. I think they're like the modern day court jesters, or like the modern day Evel Knievel daredevils who are debasing themselves and destroying their bodies and throwing themselves off ramps and rooftops, and for our amusement. They're hurting themselves for our amusement. And it's transgressive in a way to take all this stuff that's taboo or that, would be censored anywhere else and put it front and center and call it Jackass, Ted Lasso. I rewatched the first 3 seasons of Ted Lasso because season 4's coming out soon, and wanted a refresher because it's been, I think, like 3 years since the show ended. And it's just so delightful. So it's such an easy watch. I don't know why I don't rewatch it more. I feel like it could be like The Office, like a show you just stick on and because it feels like a hug. It feels like a warm blanket. Devil Wears Prada 2. Went to watch Devil Wears Prada 2 with some friends, and they were going, it was a bank holiday Monday, they were going in the morning. So I went in the morning, watched Devil Wears Prada 2, and then I went home and potted around for about an hour, and then I went back to the cinema and watched Devil Wears Prada 2 again with my family in the evening. So I watched Devil Wears Prada 2 3 times total, and twice in one day, almost back to back. And all that plot, all that Succession-y business bullshit plot really started to like pull my teeth by the third showing. But it was still a delight to see that cast together, and it holds up as a whole. As it's only when you scrutinize it. I could do that movie line by line from having watched it, twice in a row. I feel like I watched it more than the director, but it works. Euphoria season 3. I've talked about this one so much. I've done 3 videos on it now. They've all done incredibly well. Thank you to everyone who watched. And, got a lot of new subscribers from those videos. Thank you to everyone who subbed. But I'm sick of talking about this fucking thing. It was such a crushing disappointment, and I'm done with it. Daredevil Born Again Season 2. This was great. And it only got better throughout the season. It was like, started off great and then just got crazier and more action-packed and darker and bigger twists and more shocking turns. And the finale was fucking wild. I mean, the Kingpin's massacre of a bunch of protesters was like, my jaw was on the floor, and the scene in the courtroom, which I don't want to spoil what happens. There's a revelation in a courtroom, and it's a huge deal. It changes everything. And I can't wait to see where that goes in season 3. The Boys season 5. There's another one I did a video on, and another one that was a crushing disappointment. I liked the final fight between Billy Butcher and Homelander. That's what I've been waiting to see since 2019, and it didn't disappoint. I feel like people are saying, they said scorched earth, and it's scorched room, it's scorched carpet. They're just in one. But that room is the Oval Office, and in the comics, the big finale is in the Oval Office, so it's kind of a throwback to that. And the fight is brutal. Like, okay, maybe Homelander could have done more damage and broken more walls and windows. I mean, I'm trying not to spoil too much of exactly what happens, but that's the ending that story needed, I think is what I'm trying to say. For better or worse. And for some people, very much for worse. There's been very much vitriol. But, I don't know. I enjoyed that final fight. Everything else about the final season was a bit shit, but, Jackass Number Two. This one is also free on YouTube, and I feel like this is, with the first film, they went big for the big screen. It was crazier stunts and raunchier stuff than they would be allowed to do on MTV. And then with Jackass Number Two, they just did all that, but amplified it even more. It's not always easy to watch, but it's so much fun. Gary, this is like a special episode of The Bear that dropped with John Bernthal and Eben Moss Backrack, kind of a flashback episode of Mikey and Richie during kind of a fraught time in their friendship. They still love each other like brothers, but it's getting towards the point where Mikey's depression is about to, we know what happens to him, and this episode did a great job of kind of foreshadowing something we already know was going to happen and giving a bit more context to it. And it's just, it's a great little side story, and the chemistry between John Bernthal and Eben Moss Backrack Zach Rec. I think they're doing Dog Day Afternoon on Broadway right now. Be cool to see that, but I'm in bumfuck England. Their chemistry is off the charts, you know. They've done various projects together, but in The Bear, they've always captured that kind of brotherhood between Mikey and Richie. And in this episode, for a full hour, that's like the whole focus. That's it's like a little self-contained Duplass Brothers movie, like a little mumblecore movie, road trip indie movie, but it's like a surprise episode of The Bear. It was fantastic. Weapons. The Resident Evil trailer for Zach Cregger's Resident Evil movie made me want to rewatch Weapons, because I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited to see what he does with that franchise, and just what his next movie will be, because he's knocked it out of the park twice now. And Weapons is just so much damn fun. And it never gets old. It's sometimes with horror, the impact of it lessens as you watch it over and over. But I've seen this movie, 5 or 6 times now, and still enjoy every second of it. Hacks season 5. This fucking show. I wasn't ready for the show to end, and I was devastated when it did. This is one of the only shows really that starts off really great and then only gets better with every season, and then had the perfect ending at the perfect time in season 5. I cried my eyes out through those whole last 2 episodes. The second to last one, I wept with joy when Deborah took the stage, and I'm trying not to be too specific, but I just cried because it felt like it took her so long to get there, and she's had to fight so many battles to get there, and this is what it was all leading to, and she has earned it, and then some. And I just felt this huge, I'm sure everyone did watching it, felt this huge emotional catharsis watching Deborah take that stage. And then that's kind of the Ozymandias, the Breaking Bad Ozymandias, where you have the big climax, you have the big shabam we've been building to from the beginning before the final episode, and then the final episode could tie up loose ends and be kind of an epilogue, because you need your falling action. That's what the boys didn't leave room for. You have your climactic action and then falling action, and we reach a new equilibrium, but the boys gave itself 10 minutes to do that. But yeah, the final episode of Hacks, and I don't want to spoil it because it was so beautiful, but there is a line in it that is one of the greatest, most beautifully written lines. And I feel like if I say the whole line, I'll spoil it, but the ending of it, I think I have another hour, and that's it was just the perfect culmination of this whole show and this whole dynamic and this beautiful relationship that we've seen evolve for 5 seasons. It's just one of the absolute best shows I've ever seen, and when it ended, I wasn't ready to be done with it, so I went back to the start and I've rewatched it, and over this course of about the last 3 days, I've raced through the entire show, and it just is so perfect. There's not a single episode or storyline or character that pulls you out of it, and that's so rare. Most of the time you go back and rewatch a show, and certain things drag it out or hurt the pacing, but Hacks is like a perfect show. The Comeback season 3. This one, I was really enjoying it, and it was so funny, and Lisa Kudrow as Valerie Cherish, I love so much and could watch her forever. It got a little bit too preachy with the anti-AI stuff towards the end. It was a really great satire of the practicality or impracticality of using AI to help you make movies and TV shows. But then it became kind of a sermon on the mount about the dangers of AI, and it's like, this show was written by humans, and this character is about to win an Emmy, and she won it by being a human, and it's like, I know, you don't need to tell me. Your Friends and Neighbours season 2. Season 2 hasn't been as good as season 1. I think season 1 was great, and then this one's like, it's shifted away from the irony of him being rich and robbing his rich friends to stay rich, and now it's back in the business world. He's back in the world of moving money around, and it's just not as interesting. But James Marsden is stealing the show. He was an absolutely incredible addition to this season. The season probably would feel like a complete disaster if he wasn't there with his magnetic, charismatic charisma, stealing every single scene he's in, and he really is having fun with the villainy of it, with the kind of shitty thing, arsehole villain aspect, where he gets to be the bad guy and he doesn't have to be likable, but he is, like, he's James Marsden. He's so lovable, even when he's playing a prick. Margo's got money troubles. This was a really great show. The ending might have been maybe a bit too neat and safe and saccharine, and tied things up a bit too neatly, but I enjoyed the ride. I really enjoyed the ride, and I enjoyed the cast. I enjoyed, Elle Fanning and Nick Offerman and Michelle Pfeiffer and Greg Kinnear and all these fantastic actors and they're all really great. Nicole Kidman. That's how great this cast is. I forgot Nicole Kidman's in it. Jackass 3D. This one has since come to YouTube for free, but it wasn't on YouTube for free, but I still had Jackass Fever, so I went on Paramount Plus and it was there. It's in 2D. But still a great ride, and this is another one where they just went bigger and crazier. This is the one with the poo cocktail supreme, where Steve-O is in a Portaloo suspended on bungee ropes, and it's filled to the brim with shit, and they send it flying, and his mouth is agape when the shit starts flying. It's just so unbelievably nasty. These aren't the kind of movies you want to bring food to, but watching all these old ones is really getting me excited for the new one. Stardust Memories. This was kind of Woody Allen's comedic remake of 8.5, where, you know, it's a famous filmmaker with director's block, trying to figure out what to do next. It's kind of Woody's version of a Fellini movie in the way that High Anxiety is the Mel Brooks version of a Hitchcock movie. It's like the ironic, self-aware, piss-takey version of a profound Fellini film. September. There's another old, obscure Woody Allen movie I'd missed that Amazon Prime recommended after Stardust Memories ended. It's kind of, it's like a gender-swapped version of Uncle Vanya, and it's shot in very long takes, almost like a play on film, where Woody will stage a 10-minute scene and just put the camera in one place and film the whole thing. I mean, on the whole, it was one of his more forgettable films, but Mia Farrow and Elaine Stritch were so great in it. I really loved their performances in it. Pulp Fiction. I rewatched Pulp Fiction, an old childhood favorite of mine, as it is of, I'm sure, everyone. It just never gets old. It's a movie you can watch over and over and over again. Just the characters and the world and the vibes. It's, you know, that's like when Tarantino became Tarantino. Reservoir Dogs was like a little indie movie version of it, and this is like, if he has money and he has movie stars, what's he gonna do? And this is what he did. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I rewatched this as well. It was made for a weird double feature with Pulp Fiction, but it's just so fucking funny. It's another one that never gets old. You keep watching it and it keeps being funny, and, you know, the scene with the Black Knight and the scene where John Cleese is running towards the castle and there's that kind of reverse shot. Like, that's the genius of Monty Python, and I suppose of Terry Gilliam and Terry Jones specifically as its directors, is that they can use the kind of the expectations of film language and the conventions of film language to deliver punchlines. It's not all just like in the writing, it's in the filmmaking as well. Like, everything's getting laughs. It's genius. The White Lotus. I started rewatching White Lotus last month and got to the dreaded season 3 this month. I actually liked it a lot more than I remembered. I think, you know, White Lotus is such a slow burn. It works better on a binge watch than an episode a week. And I think that, especially because it was 8 episodes, so it was dragged out for even longer. But dragged out sounds bad. I mean, like, there's much more room for nuance and things, and subtlety, but it took longer. It took 2 weeks longer than season 1. And you're on like an IV drip getting 1 hour a week. You can see the bigger picture better when you binge watch something, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Buffalo Bill and the Indians. This was an old Robert Altman film I hadn't seen. It's a really clever way to subvert the Western genre, because it's like about a traveling show. So it's all being presented as fake, the cowboys and Indians, and, you know, we're seeing the American myths that the Western is based on get written in real time. And Paul Newman's playing against type. He's great in the lead role. It was a great, you know, quirky little kind of Western, anti-Western almost. Jackass Forever. This one I had to really go digging for. This one wasn't even on Paramount. I had to find it on Channel 4, whatever that's called now, All 4, 4OD or whatever. And this one has a new cast. This was like when they're old and they bring in new cast members and torture them. And that's a whole, you know, that's fun to watch in its own way. And it's, of course, you know, it doesn't feel the same without Ryan Dunn and without Bam. But it's still fun to watch these wild stunts, you know, to watch the craziest one in this film, I think, is when Danger Aaron is strapped to an electric chair and they pull honey on him and he's allergic to bees, and it makes it sound like they're about to unleash a bunch of bees on him, and then they dump a bunch of salmon in his crotch, and then they open up a big cage and a fucking bear comes out and starts poking around in his genital area trying to get the salmon, and it's like very almost biting his hand off, and they're shocking him the whole time. He's on this electric chair. It's bad enough that a bear's trying to eat him and he's trying to stay still, and they keep shocking him. It's fucking mental. It's like worse than something Jigsaw would do. And he has like PTSD when they come and unstrap him. If someone like touches his shoulder, he's like shaking, and he's like very, very reactive to people touching him because he just thought he was about to get ravaged by a bear. The Prisoner. I'd never seen The Prisoner. The old classic British spy series. The original mystery box show, really. It's, you know, Twin Peaks and Lost and all these shows, Yellow Jackets, wouldn't exist without The Prisoner. They're all standing on the shoulders of The Prisoner, because this was the original show that's just has you asking questions through every episode. Why is that big white ball killing people, you know? Because there's a great premise. It's Patrick McGowan. I don't even pronounce it, from Danger Man, and it's set up like it's another Danger Man, but it's not Danger Man. It's like if Danger Man got abducted and sent to Twin Peaks. He wakes up in a village that's surrounded by water on one side and mountains on the other 3, and it seemingly has no way out. It's like this crazy, surreal, Kafka-esque allegory for the kind of political paranoia of the 60s, and it's a wild ride. It holds the fuck up. It's like 70 something years old, or is it? What is it? 50 years old? I don't know. 60? About 60 years old. And but it's still just as compelling now. It's still just as visually stunning, just as brilliantly written and directed and acted, and it was amazing. I got this DVD box set years and years ago, and I never got around to watching it, and I'm glad I did. Star Trek. This is the 2009 one, which I used to watch it every night on my iPod, because it was one of the only movies on my iPod. And this is what got me interested in Star Trek in the first place, because J.J. Abrams basically made it Star Wars. He made it a more traditional, pulpy, action-packed space adventure, and that bastardized Star Trek into something it never was or never should have been. It's, you know, more of an optimistic look at a utopian future where humanity has come together, all races and creeds, to explore the cosmos together, you know. But J.J. Abrams turned it into good guys versus bad guys, pew pew, you know. But I loved that stuff, so... the lens flares are very distracting. That's I think Abrams reined it in a bit after this, but he really went overboard on Star Trek 1. And I forgot Carl Urban plays Bones. That was a nice surprise after The Boys had ended, and I was needing my fix of Billy Butcher. There he is as the Doctor on the Enterprise. Jackie Brown. Rewatched Jackie Brown after Pulp Fiction, and this is like so not what you'd expect from the follow-up to Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. You'd think the third movie would be even bigger, crazier, bloodier than Pulp Fiction, but goes the other way. It's like a very mature, very understated movie for Tarantino, certainly. This was like his only real attempt at like a grown-up movie where you can't rely on someone's head is going to explode or someone's going to say the N-word. Actually, there is a lot of that in this, maybe more so than any of his other films. But you know what I mean? He can't rely on his usual juvenile tricks to keep the audience excited. He's just telling Elmo Leonard's story. I think that's really the key, is that it was an adaptation. It's his only adaptation. And so he kind of exercises a bit of restraint because he's reverent of this source material, and because Elmo Leonard isn't the kind of storyteller who's going to blow someone's head off. It's just a brilliant film that not enough people have seen. The Punisher, One Last Kill. This was, apart from that one CGI shot that everyone hates, where the Punisher briefly turns into Joel from The Last of Us and lands on a big digital box. This was an incredible little, what would you call it, special. Kind of bridging the gap between why wasn't he in Daredevil and where is he going to be in Spider-Man. And I could watch Jon Bernthal play Frank Castle for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because he's so good at capturing the rage underneath and the deep sadness, you know, that he's not just some cold badass, the guilt is weighing on him, you know? I mean, we've seen about 3 of these stories now where he tries to retire from being the Punisher. The first episode of his Punisher show was exactly this, where he tries to not be the Punisher anymore, and then he gets drawn back in and kind of accepts his grim purpose in life. But it's a solid story. It's kind of like Shane, like a modern-day Shane. And Jon Bernthal played it great, and, you know, the action, when Ma Nucci, who, Judith Light from Who's the Boss, great fucking casting for her, when she sends, like, hundreds of goons after Frank, that's like, and it becomes like The Raid, it becomes like The Night Comes For Us, it becomes one of the goriest, most brutal action scenes you've ever seen. I was eating good. Mean Streets. I rewatched Mean Streets. The old, it's kind of like the first real Scorsese movie. The first Scorsese movie that felt like what we now think of as a Scorsese movie, with the gangsters and Little Italy and the Catholic guilt. And Harvey Keitel's fantastic in it. Robert De Niro. They actually, that relationship of Charlie and Johnny Boy remind me of my friend and his cousin, where his cousin's always getting into fights and all kinds of trouble and monetary issues. And my friend always just has to come and bail him out reluctantly, exactly like Harvey Keitel. So I always think of those two when I watch the film. Maul, Shadow Lord. I finally caught up on this. It was gorgeous, you know, stylish, Spider-Verse-y, half 2D, half 3D kind of animation. A great voice cast, you know, Sam Witwer's always so good as Maul, and Wagner Moura, fresh off an Oscar nomination. Dennis Haybert, aka President David Palmer from 24. Gideon Adlon, who I thought did a fantastic job. She kind of has inherited her mother's gift for voice acting. It's a really terrific show, and it's more Andor than, you know, Clone Wars. It's more, let's look at the dark side of what the occupation of the Empire really looks like. The Testament of Ann Lee. Finally caught up on this, and I can understand why it alienated some Oscar voters and why, you know, because Amanda Seyfried is amazing in it, but it's such a weird fucking film and very alienating. I found the story of kind of different Christian denominations and religious persecution pretty boring, but I loved the musical numbers. I think it was a nice touch to make it a musical and the musical numbers are very cinematic, and some of them reminded me of the songs in Bob's Burgers in a good way. They're very catchy and campy. Bring Her Back. I went away with the lads with we went and rented a little cottage in Wales. And we watched Bring Her Back, which I hadn't seen. I'd seen Talk to Me and really enjoyed. And then I never got around to watching Bring Her Back, their kind of follow-up movie. But this is even crazier and even gorier and even more intense and disturbing than Talk to Me. And I liked the film, but I thought the way it doled out information was very disjointed. Sometimes we know too much or we don't know enough. But there's some really great moments in it. You know, a disturbed child trying to eat a knife is a pretty fucked up image. Send Help. The next night, we went away for the whole weekend, and that was Friday night. night, and Saturday night we watched Send Help, which I have seen twice now, or 3 times now, and every bit as fun every time. And I will never get tired of watching Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien in these roles. They're so great as these characters and as this dynamic, and it's just so much fun. It's on my top 10 for the year. It'll be on the list, even though we're only halfway through the year. Eyes Without a Face. This is an old French horror movie, really early body horror. Actually, it reminded me of the American Dad episode where Stan accidentally rips off Haley's face and he's trying to fix it and it just makes it worse. That episode, actually, now I'm saying it, was probably inspired by this film. But for the time and for the content restrictions there were, I guess, and just how far the boundary had been pushed and the envelope had been pushed at that point, this is a radical fucking movie. The Pitt. Been hearing good things about The Pitt for the last 2 years, as everyone has, and I finally bit the bullet and gave it a watch. And at first I found it like really good immersion therapy as a hypochondriac. Like the first couple of episodes, I convinced myself I had every single medical condition that ever came up in the show. Because this kind of like medical drama, these hospital shows, whether it's like Holby City or Casualty or whatever, I've never really been my cup of tea. But I fucking love this one. I love The Pitt, you know, because Noah Wyle is a really good actor and really, really naturally charming. I actually have a massive, massive man crush on Dr. Robbie. He's so just cool and collected and competent, you know? You just would feel very safe with Dr. Robbie. And I love the real-time 24 thing. It's like every episode has a great cliffhanger ending that like drags you into the next one. And, you know, now I've caught up and I'm watching it week to week. I hate that. I liked it when I could binge watch it and basically literally watch it in real time. Because season 1, I basically watched in one day. I basically did the shift with them, but just watched the whole time. Obsession. I did another video about this, but it's so fucking good. It's not been overhyped. If you haven't seen it yet, go and try and find a screening where you can find a seat, because this thing is selling like gangbusters, and it deserves all the hype, especially Indy Navarrete's performance. She carries the whole film. She's fantastic. She's creepy as hell, but so good. I love this movie. This is another one that's going to be on the top 10. Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa. This is kind of like the spin-off, and it's, you know, I think Jackass works much better without a plot, but this one is like a surprisingly sweet story. You know, it's kind of like Paper Moon, if Ryan O'Neal shit up the wall of a restaurant in Paper Moon, you know. But it's like the road trip of the old guy and the kid he doesn't want, but by the end of it he loves the kid and wants to help raise the kid. Kind of beautiful in a weird way for a movie with so many shit jokes and fart jokes. Blue Beetle. I missed this one when it came out, and I caught up on it, and, you know, it's a charming little superhero movie, but it felt very, very familiar and formulaic. Like, there wasn't anything in it I haven't seen done better in 10 other movies. Like, it's fine, but you need to do better than fine in the year of our Lord 2023, or whenever this came out. You can't just get away with doing what worked in 2004. But having said that, George Lopez stole every scene. I loved him in it. He kind of made the movie for me. Susan Sarandon, I thought, was unusually awkward. It's like she wasn't quite sure how arch to go with her villain, or how camp to go. And it was probably from bad direction. You know, I don't want to accuse anyone of anything. I don't want to blame the director. But it's Susan Sarandon. She doesn't just give a bad performance on her own, you know? The Mandalorian and Grogu. I did another video about this, so, you know, but it's basically, in a nutshell, you know, it's really, really fun. The action sequences are incredible, and it looks amazing, and it's a really, really fun summer blockbuster. But it doesn't move the needle at all. It doesn't change the status quo at all. You could go from the episode before this film to the episode after this film and not feel like you missed anything, because nothing really happened. It was just one of Mando's side quests extended to 2 hours. But it was a really fun movie and very action-packed, and, you know, maybe that's enough, you know? Falling Down. I rewatched Falling Down because it just keeps feeling more and more relevant, you know? I love the scene in the fast food restaurant where he's like comparing what the food actually looks like versus the picture on the billboard, and Michael Douglas is so good in that film. The Mandalorian and Grogu. I went back a second time. I went with my dad and my sister, and you know, again, it's fun. It's a great time. You're never bored, but at the end of it, you're like, what was the point? Widow's Bay. This is a really, really fun horror comedy. Matthew Rhys is the star of it. So good, playing this kind of everyman mayor of this town where he wants it to be a tourist hotspot, but there's all kinds of urban legends about ghosts and things there, and so people think it's haunted, so they don't want to come, so he's trying to prove it's not haunted. And it kind of just becomes this kind of Schitt's Creek meets Stephen King. It's like this eccentric small town full of colorful characters, but the small town is like one of the towns in one of Stephen King's books where there's ghosts and demons and serial killers. It was a really promising show from the start, but stick it out till episode 2, because that's when it really becomes great, I think. When the mayor goes to stay in this haunted hotel to prove it's not haunted, and then he finds that it is haunted, you know. Beef season 2. I liked season 1 of Beef, and then season 2 came out, you know, and it didn't really need to become an anthology show. It was perfectly fine as a miniseries. And I was kind of put off by the reviews for season 2 because they were very mixed. But I had nothing else to watch, so I stuck it on and ended up binging it, and I'm glad I watched it because it was, you know, all the reviews are saying it's like become a poor man's White Lotus. And that is absolutely correct. It is the upstairs downstairs thing of White Lotus, but not as clever. But that's when it moves away from these two couples at the center of the beef to look at other characters. That's when it feels like it's trying to be White Lotus. It's trying to have a comment on class. But when it's just about these two couples, Charles Melton and Kaylee Spaney and Oscar Isaac and Kerry Mulligan, their chemistry with each other in their couples and with each other in their feud is great, especially Kaylee Spaney and Oscar Isaac. Their scenes together, I was riveted. The Mandalorian and Grogu, I watched it again with a couple of friends in 3D. It was like the only time they could do was the time it was in 3D, and it actually looked kind of cool in 3D, and it gave me a way to experience it a different way for the third fucking time. This is Devil Wears Prada 2 all over again, except, you know, Mandalorian and Grogu isn't, the issue is the opposite. It doesn't have enough plot. It doesn't do enough big things, but in 3D, Mando on his jetpack, especially, those shots looked amazing in 3D, in a post 3D conversion. Mare of Easttown, I binge watched Mare of Easttown, and it kind of felt like an unofficial season of True Detective. It kind of, like if they hadn't called it Mare of Easttown, if they'd called it True Detective Season 5 or Season 3 or 4 or whatever year it came out, what season it would have been, no one would have batted an eye. It's like got the same kind of, you know, the detective's messy personal life bleeds into their investigation. And I mean, much more so in Mare of Easttown, professional life and the personal life come clashing together when the clues start pointing to Mare's own family, you know. But it was an amazing cast. Kate Winslet is so great as the kind of grizzled detective and so nuanced, and she can tell you so much about what her character's thinking without showing it, you know, like her face won't move, but you can see a deep well of pain behind her eyes. And Jean Smart from Hacks is her mom, Roy from The Office is her ex-husband, Kaylee Spaney was the girl who got killed, Julianne Nicholson is Mare's best friend, Guy Pearce was her love interest. It's an amazing cast, and it kind of tonally, especially towards the end, it felt very kind of Silence of the Lambs. It was just such a brilliant little crime thriller, you know. Halloween, I rewatched the original Halloween, so I did a video about Dark Star, and I was kind of talking about John Carpenter and how much I love him, and, you know, I hadn't gone back to rewatch his films in a while, so I rewatched Halloween, which is, you know, I feel like that's probably a good horror film for beginners, because by today's standards, it's not actually that scary or intense, but if you showed it to a kid who'd never seen a horror film before, who wanted to get into horror, that would tell them everything they need to know about the tropes and the language of horror, and it would be a great introduction to, sorry, my friends are about to have a baby, and I'm starting to plan how I'm going to educate them in film studies. They Live. After Halloween, I watched They Live, and this one felt really, really relevant in a post-Epstein world. It almost felt like it had been made as a big sci-fi metaphor for the Epstein class, but it was like 30 years before Epstein was a thing. Dredd. I rewatched Dredd. Just one of my absolute favorite comic book movies. So brutal and bloody and fucked up. It kind of loses the satirical element of the comics. It's more of kind of a straightforward Dirty Harry in the future kind of police thriller. But it's so good. It's so gory and gruesome, but there's also an emotional hook where he's kind of training the rookie, and Olivia Thirlby's so great in that role. And there's another one, it's Carl Urban as Dredd. It's so good. Spider-Noir. I did a video about this one. This was a delightful little surprise. I thought, you know, it seemed gimmicky, and then you get past the gimmick, and it's just a great show. It's just a great little mystery noir / superhero action comedy / a bit of body horror / Nicolas Cage doing his Nicolas Cage thing. It's a wild ride. Backrooms. There's another one I did a video on. I've done videos about lots of things, and it's creepy. It's like it almost hurt it to have it come out so close to Obsession, partly because now Hollywood is going to go plundering YouTube and get Mr. Beast to make their next temple, because they're going to take the wrong lessons from this quote-unquote trend. Because it's not even a trend. Ken Parsons and Cory Barker started on YouTube, but their movies came together in completely different ways. So Hollywood's trying to make it like it's, you know, they're part of one thing. But what really hurt it is that Obsession's a better story, and Backrooms is very, very atmospheric and creepy, and the vibes are so great, and it recaptures what makes those original shorts on YouTube that I've since gone back and watched so creepy. But it as a narrative, it doesn't satisfy nearly as much as Obsession did. So it kind of hurts that the fact that you're just inviting these inevitable comparisons. They're being lumped together as YouTube horror movies. But it's for a fucking, like, he was, what was he, 18 when he directed it? It's incredible for having been made by an 18-year-old. I'm so proud of him, and that's a weird thing to say because I don't know him and I can't take credit for his success at all. But I don't know, I like that kid. I've been listening to him in interviews, and he sounds more articulate and intelligent than the 50-year-old who's interviewing him, you know? Maximum pleasure guaranteed. I started watching this because Tatiana Maslany. I'll watch in anything. I loved her as She-Hulk. I loved her in Orphan Black as the many Project Leader clones. I've just loved her in everything I've seen her in, so naturally she's in a new show, I'm going to watch it. And she's like a divorcee getting swindled by a cam boy, which I don't even know, I've only ever heard the term cam girl, I never heard cam boy. But it stands to reason that they should exist. So she's drawn into this criminal conspiracy. Maury Bartlett is in it and Jake Johnson, and I'm enjoying it so far. I've only like 3 or 4 episodes in, or the series itself I think is only that many episodes in. So I can't really judge it as a whole yet, but it's gotten off to a very promising start. Daisy Miller. I've been trying to track this down, I think, for like 2 years since I read Tarantino's book, Cinema Speculation. There was a chapter about this film, and it sounded fascinating, and I couldn't find it for years. I finally got a hold of a DVD of it, and it's, like everything you've heard about it is correct. It is fine as a costume drama, but Sybil Shepherd was terribly miscast as Daisy, and I really like Sybil Shepherd. I just think she doesn't have that kind of magnetism or what you would need for her to be, for who this character is supposed to be, that she enters a room and everyone's head turns and everyone wants to talk to her and she wants to talk to them, and she's very chatty and flirty and very, I don't know, I just feel like you need Marilyn Monroe to play that character. And Sybil Shepherd is very beautiful and very charismatic, but she is not Marilyn Monroe. The Lego Batman movie. This is unironically one of the greatest Batman movies ever made. It has like Sauron and King Kong in it and all these other Warner Brothers properties, Gremlins, but at the core of it, it really is just about who Batman is as a character, and I feel like it touched on what his core emotional thing is more so than most of the films, but most of the live action films, where it's that he is a lone wolf and pushes people away and wants to work alone because from losing his parents, from the trauma of losing his parents, he's in his head, he thinks if I get close to people, I might lose them, or they might get killed, or they might get hurt. So he pushes them away and says, I don't need them, I'm okay on my own. And Alfred's trying to convince him, no, everyone needs a family, everyone needs to love people and be loved. And by the end, he has the Bat family, he has Robin and Batgirl, and like, it's a really, really funny, crazy cartoon, but it also has that beautiful, emotional story at the center of it. So anyway, that's everything I watched in May. It was actually more shit than I remembered watching, and this video that I said would be short ended up being longer than I thought. But thanks for sticking around, and I hope you've had a great month. I hope you have a great month in June before I speak to you again. And let me know if there's anything you want to recommend. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.